So can you do the splits, guys? My assumption will be, if you're watching this video, no, not many people can. It's a very acquired skill. But why can't we do the splits? If we look at our anatomy, there is no muscle, no ligament, no tendon, which runs from one leg over to the other. Each of these are individual suspension units. So logic dictates, if I can put my left leg up to 90 degrees and I can put my right leg up to 90 degrees, why can't I then get my ass to the grass? Well, it all boils down to our nervous system. It has a predetermined length and strength for every muscle in your body. And this is based on a number of things. Probably the most common is previous injuries and a fear of moving. It's quite often the fact where we've, say, pulled a hamstring, and this hamstring then it becomes incredibly tight. Now think of this as the body's way of battening down that area, so it makes it just a little bit tighter, it's a little bit more protected. Okay, so if we look at stretching, does it make sense to then grab that muscle and stretch it beyond what it's capable of? No. The brain is just going to get a ton of info. It's going to look at the context and say, it's that right hamstring again. No, I am not playing. Flare up. So how do we work with this? Well, there's a couple of, let's call them neurological hacks that we can use to almost immediately increase your range of motion and begin to settle your nervous system. This is not an overnight thing. It does take time and consistency. And that is a different type of stretching called PNF, or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation for the geeks out there. So what does it involve? Well, it involves changing the narrative that the brain has around the tissue in the body. So for example, let's look at, again, the hamstring stretch, one of my favorite ones to do with clients when we are in studio, because quite often the hamstrings and the back are one of the first things which lock down in the brain's effort to stop us from moving, right? So what PNF essentially does is send a ton of sensory information from the area that you are stretching to the brain and helps it change its narrative in a couple of ways. So let's have a look at how PNF works. So here I am, guys, in the Newcastle studio, mat on floor, and I'm going to demonstrate how PNF stretching actually works. Now, it's quite often that people will have imbalances in muscle tension between your hamstrings, thighs, calves, lower back, shoulders, neck, whatever it is, it's there for a reason. It's there quite simply to protect that area based on your brain's perception of what needs protecting. So PNF stretching is a little different to regular stretching. So a regular stretch, we might grab this hamstring and then, you know, get into this kind of position. I think this is a very common one that a lot of us are told, and then we're told, like, find that stretch and then stretch away and stay there until the muscle relaxes. Now, quite often, guys, the muscle doesn't relax. It does the exact opposite of its intended purpose. So essentially what's happening here is your brain receives a ton of nociception, ton of information from this area. It says, oh no, right hamstring, which is tight, which I've been protecting, is now sending me a ton of info. What am I going to do? Okay, flare up. Almost immediately, or in the hours afterwards, you're going to have a flare up. This is a very common theme we see, and that's why traditional static stretching, it's probably not the best. So the course of action that we take is PNF stretching. Now PNF's a little different because it actually involves a muscular contraction as well. So the exact same stretch, but done in a different way. Let's stick with this right hamstring. So I'm going to go into this type here, okay? My knees flat against the floor, and I'm just starting to feel that now in my hamstring. So what I'm going to do, my heel, I'm physically pushing it down into the ground. This causes my hamstring to contract. Now the hamstring is contracting, but it's also being elongated simultaneously. Now the brain receives this information and it says, yeah, I feel pretty safe because the muscle's in a contracted state, and you're getting the benefit of this elongating. Now we'll hold this typically for 10 seconds, we'll push down, and then we'll take a big deep breath and relax. We stop pushing and just inch ourselves a little deeper, quite literally a half an inch to an inch, and we repeat. We push down into the mat again, big deep breaths. When your 10 seconds are up, we stop pushing and we go just a little further. Okay, we would typically repeat that 3 times. Now what essentially is happening here is your brain is in this new range of motion, but it's got there incrementally and it has felt safe on the way. Now this doesn't last an awful long time. It might last 30 minutes up to several hours. It's not an immediate fix. But if you do one side and then you immediately stand up and try to touch your toes, you're going to feel the difference between the one that you've just done and the one you haven't. The one you've just done will feel nice and loose, and the opposite one will feel a little tighter. So I hope that was useful, guys. There's also PNF stretching we can do for the neck, the back, the shoulders, the hip flexors, all very common areas which tend to get battened down when the brain predetermines its length and strength for every muscle.